What happens when you die? And what if after you die, you could come back and tell the world what you discovered? In today's episode of Power and Presence, I'm going to share the remarkable story of Vincent Tolman via an interview where he says that he was clinically dead for up to an hour. He reports that he had a remarkable near-death experience where he was shown the future and 10 profound life principles were revealed to him. And I'm going to share my own insights based on my 3 decades of my own intuitive insights, including those gleaned from working with the remarkable shamans and seers from around the world. Let's begin by taking a quick look at the introduction to that Shaman Oaks episode hosted by Alan L. Chapman.
So I heard you had a near-death experience where you were dead for over an hour. Oh, can you please share that story with me?
Yes, in a body bag for right on the dot about 45 minutes, but I was likely dead well over an hour total. So they think I was dead for at least 30 to 45 minutes before they found me. But I was cold, like cold to the touch.
Alan describes his channel as a place for near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences that explore the topic of life after death. I was about to pass over this when it arrived in my feed the other day, but there was a very strong pull from it, so I decided to check it out. This is the way I make many of my choices. And I clicked. And I'm glad I did, because the story of Vincent Tolman is a very significant one. On this Power and Presence channel, I bridge several worlds: academic foresight, future studies, including the impacts of technology on human futures, but also the deeper psychological and spiritual domains of human experience. And in this video, what I'm going to talk about covers just about all of those things. You can find the link to the Shaman Oaks episode in the description below, and also the links to Vincent's book, The Light After Death. The backstory about Vincent is that in his younger days, he was an amateur bodybuilder. And one day, one of his mates introduced him to a new supplement, which was imported from Thailand, and it turned out to be highly toxic. Vincent ended up passing out on the bathroom floor of a local restaurant and basically drowning in his own vomit. Not a nice way to go. That's when his NDE, or near-death experience, began, as he explains.
And out of nowhere, I felt like I was sitting in a very comfortable movie chair. And I was watching this movie, but the movie was this scene of this body on the ground. And I was looking at everything from above. But what's weird is it didn't feel like it was me at all. Even though I was sitting there looking at my own dead body, I couldn't recognize it.
So here we begin to see some of the typical features of near-death experiences. And one of those is witnessing yourself from above the body, as if consciousness has left the physical body. Other typical experiences noted in the literature include moving through a tunnel towards a bright light, meeting dead relatives or spirit guides, being shown a life review, as well as deep insights into one's own behaviors and the nature of life, death, and the workings of the cosmos itself. These commonalities of near-death experiences, which transcend the culture and worldviews of the experiences, is one of the validating aspects of these experiences, and suggests that they're not purely imaginative. But we have to recognize that if an NDE experiencer is perceiving the body from outside the body, then they're not seeing with their physical eyes, just as when people have perceptions of events outside their immediate location or time, so-called psi experiences. They're not seeing with the physical senses. Therefore, we should not be surprised to find a combination of the literal and the symbolic, or dreamlike, in psi experiences, including NDEs. Let's return to Vincent's story. The next part of the video is where Vincent relates that after losing consciousness and leaving his body, he could perceive the thoughts of the workers at the restaurant where he collapsed from his position above the entire scene.
I could hear every single thought that they had, including even the cook, which was so odd to me. My background actually was TV and film. And so as I was watching this, I thought that was such an odd choice for the director.
This is yet another common feature of NDEs, in that experiences can often pick up the thoughts of people and also spiritual entities telepathically. Now, this is considered scientifically impossible in contemporary mainstream science, but I believe this is an error. Near-death experiences are further evidence that consciousness is not purely located in the body, and that we possess what I call integrated intelligence. I've personally had over 3 decades of regular experiences of integrated intelligence, and And that's why it's one of the things I regularly discussed in my books, articles, and other videos. Now, most commonly, people perceive events or even thoughts from other locations or times in non-ordinary states of consciousness, such as NDEs, dreams, crisis situations, and so on. But integrated intelligence can be developed, and I've seen this in my own work and relationships with other people over many years. More about this a little later in this video, but let's go on to the next segment of the Shaman Oaks video, which features another typical aspect of near-death experiences, which is encounters with spiritual guides or spiritual entities. So, after Vincent found himself leaving the scene of his death, he became aware of a presence close by, as he recounts here.
So I turned around and I saw this man there, this amazing man, all dressed in white. And the first thought I had was, this is God. And he laughed and he's like, no, I'm not God. I'm just your guide. I'm here to help you.
The spiritual guide introduces himself to Vincent as Drake. And sometime after the NDE, Vincent discovers that he was an ancestor of his. Now, I've experienced encounters with spiritual guides many times in my own life, so I know they exist for all humans. It's just that most of us are not aware of them. One other thing that I found quite relevant in Vincent's book is his description of Drake's eyes. He said, or he writes, what captured my attention was his brilliant blue eyes. They seemed to pierce through me, and I sensed that he somehow knew me. I had a very similar experience years ago while meditating in my 20s. While in a deep state of consciousness, a man's face suddenly appeared very clearly before my mind's eye. It was a man of early middle age with brown hair, slightly dark skin, and a short brown beard. But what shocked me was that he had the most brilliant eyes, light blue and sparkling like diamonds. As with Vincent's story, these eyes just pierced right through me. So much so that they scared the hell out of me, and I immediately jumped out of my seat and ended the meditation. Later I read of other people who'd had the same experience with guides and angelic entities with these piercingly brilliant eyes. Now, in this next clip, Vincent talks about the love that he felt emanating from his guide, Drake, and why this was an important part of his near-death experience.
That love, I knew that that was something I needed. I knew that was something I really, really wanted. It was something I didn't have in this life. And so I asked him, what's that energy that's coming from you? I want that. And he explained that it was the energy coming from home. And so I proceeded to say, hey, let's go home then. I want to go home. This love that was healing me, and it was healing me from an entire life of abuse, of trauma. I knew I wanted to go towards whatever that energy was, because that energy to me was heaven.
What's important for me here is that Vincent is alluding to an essential experience of love itself, a commonality to almost all spiritual traditions, as well as NDEs. That's really the basis of consciousness in its fully present state, which I would see as its natural state once we heal the trauma that so many of us carry. One thing that's important to understand is that even though we can get help from spirit in our healing, we have to have a strong intentionality to do our own healing work, or that basis of consciousness will not be able to fully express itself in our lives. But there's no escape from trauma, from our pain. There's no going home until deep within our own spirit we've developed the intention to heal, and that means that we have to learn to be present with our trauma. That's something that I discovered from my own journey, and it's still part of my journey and my learning, which is incomplete. The desire to escape from the world is the desire to avoid being present with our own pain. In the rest of his interview, Vincent outlines 10 principles that he was shown during his NDE, communicated through his guide or by the experience itself. I'm just going to share several which I feel I have a personal understanding of based on my experience and my relationships with other spiritual practitioners. The first principle that Vincent talks about is the need to develop an authentic self. It's his guide Drake that reveals this to him.
He started to help me understand that the most important thing for us in this life, the most important thing, is authenticity. And that I needed to find out who I was authentically before I could even start this journey towards heaven, towards home. He helped me see that there was a version of me that I would go and be with my mom, dad. There was a version of me that would go be with my friends. I knew there was all these different versions of me. And he helped me understand that I could stitch together a core of who I was between all of those situations. And that's who I really was, my authentic self. And he helped me understand that that was the most important self, was my authentic self, because that's the one that could grow.
All I can say here is that I wholeheartedly concur with this wisdom. It's vital that we understand our authentic selves, or what I sometimes call our deep self. This is the base from which we can develop and grow as human beings in conscious relationship with others and society, and from which we can build our lives and careers. Without authenticity, we're all too easily manipulated in this age of artificial intelligence by the covert and overt manipulations of media, social media, big tech, politicians, and so on. This directly relates to Vincent's next principle, seeing life as a learning journey, a wisdom journey.
There's divine purpose behind our earth time. The purpose to earth is a classroom, and it never was a courtroom, no matter what religion teaches you. It's always been a classroom. In fact, most of the universe refers to earth as earth school, and it's one of the hardest schools there is, because there is so much resistance, so much hardship here. But it's also one of the schools where you can gain the most. You live a lot harder life here, but you gain so much more than you do in other schools.
This principle is so important because it establishes an intrinsic meaning and purpose to life, something which has been lost among so many of us in the wake of the scientific revolution of the past 300 years. Seeing life on Earth as a learning experience provides a framework from which to understand the experiences that we have. That doesn't mean we're always going to understand what happens, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that everything has a purpose, which is a kind of cliche in New Age and religious circles. However, it does mean there's a potential for us to learn and even garner wisdom from life experiences, from our relationship with others and with life itself. I'm going to move on now to the fourth principle Vincent learned, and it's closely related to our innate integrated intelligence.
He helped me understand that our Creator loves all of us so much that our Creator has left an inner voice. It could be called the spirit, could be called intuition, and it could be called gut instinct. And if we want, we can turn it on and we can strengthen that.
I touched on the idea of integrated intelligence a little earlier. Now, I don't think I've told this story before, though it may appear somewhere in my writings. It's about one of the most profound moments on my journey, and it occurred just after I began to practice meditation around the age of 26. One night as I was falling asleep, I suddenly became aware of a female presence at my bedside. At the time, I was not quite asleep, but in the drowsy state, or hypnagogic state as it's known. And this woman, who seemed to be a spiritual guide, began to move her hands above my body, calming me as if energetically healing me. She was also communicating with me. She told me that I was very hurt and that I didn't yet realize how deeply hurt I was. She then said that I was only utilizing 2% of my consciousness structure, my intelligence. This was telepathically communicated to me, but I could hear a voice. This encounter is what later inspired me to develop the concept of integrated intelligence, the idea that humans have a capacity for an expanded intelligence, including non-local perceptions. And integrated intelligence includes both an impersonal component, such as when we receive information directly from other sources without a sender. But also there can be a personal element, such as when we receive thoughts and ideas coming from other people or spiritual entities. So Vincent Tolman's NDE experience corresponds with my own life experience of integrated intelligence, gleaned from spending a lot of time in deeper, relaxed states of awareness, and also from working with others who have an understanding of these things. Now, Vincent's fifth principle relates to developing a conscious relationship with technology, an idea that is central to my own understanding and features heavily on this channel, in my book Power and Presence, and in my upcoming Power and Presence course on mind-futures.com.
Our relationship with technology. The technology itself is going to either be lifting you up or tearing you down. And if you're not sure what it's doing, it's tearing you down because it's only one direction or the other. And when it's lifting you up, you know it's lifting you up.
I describe the same principle that Vincent outlines as technology expanding or contracting consciousness. And you can get a sense of this with any online space or platform that you engage. This is one reason why I don't create or share content that I believe will contract consciousness, only that which I believe will expand it. A fundamental moral stance I take with all my work today. Okay, later in his interview, Vincent goes on to say something that I hope listeners truly understand. This is Vincent's sixth lesson, one which is so important in today's era of political tribalism. And it's a point, once again, that I've made many times and written about quite often and in all my books. You can't build a society or a future where compassion, justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion is the foundation if it's simultaneously founded upon a culture where projections towards a demonized other tribe are normalized, especially if the other tribe represents about half the population. But it appears that many people today just don't get this, thanks to the political weaponization of perfectly good ideas, which turn them into very bad practices. This is the equivalent of going to church on Sunday and praising Jesus, love, then going home and kicking the cat. Here's how Vincent describes it, again as explained to him through his guide, Drake.
He helped me understand that this midway point of going to heaven, there's a fence in the middle of the midway point, and it was called prejudice. And he helped me understand that I couldn't get to heaven until I released all prejudice. And I said, Drake, you're talking to the one guy who has no prejudice in his life. I really believed that at the time. I have 2 Korean sisters. I felt that I was the least racist. I was the least prejudiced in the whole world. And he lovingly put his arm on my shoulder. And he was like, Vinny, I'm so grateful that you don't have any prejudice. But what do you feel about prejudiced people? And when he said that, I was like, well, I'll tell you about prejudiced people. They are so close-minded. They are so ridiculous. I can't believe they choose on race or religion or lifestyle to ostracize and to cut out. I was like, I hate prejudiced people, so that should let me get into heaven. He lovingly showed me I was joining the prejudice team by hating prejudiced people.
So, what's a better way to deal with prejudiced people? Here Vincent is given a genuine gift by his guide.
Then Drake showed me one of the most prejudiced people I knew in my life. He showed me that person's path, and that I got to walk a mile in their shoes to kind of understand a little bit, but I also understood the key to helping them out of that is someone who didn't fit the stereotype. Someone like that who could come up and love that person, that's someone who can heal them of their prejudiced nature. If you can show enough love or pour enough love on the most prejudiced of souls and hearts, you can pull them out of it.
So there it is. Walk a mile in their shoes. Love even the sinners. That seems like quite a Christian theme to me. Of course, that doesn't mean to stand by and watch others be abused or to allow yourself to be abused, nor that you should never be critical of prejudiced behaviors. So there are distinctions to be made here. Another principle Vincent was shown is one that your father and school teachers probably told you as a kid. Drake told Vincent that his future life wasn't going to be easy, but that the difficulties would be worth it. Yet it was only after he recovered and was released from hospital that he slowly began to appreciate the depth of this wisdom.
After I had that experience, I was extremely depressed. I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to be in this earthly plane. I wanted to go back to my home. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I kept hearing Drake tell me on almost a daily basis, Vinny, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it. And so I stuck it out till I met my wife, Andrea, and she was my saving grace. She was the one who helped me realize that there was heaven here on earth, and in her eyes, I could see heaven.
Notice that Vincent alludes to the fact that it's not easy to live life here in this world. Life can be very difficult, and suffering appears to be a part of life. There's no conceivable future that I can think of whereby life will consist only of ups with no downs. Only happiness, only light, without some contrasting darkness from which to be able to gauge what light is, what happiness is. If you look at it that way, whether we experience suffering or happiness at any given moment, we can understand that both are merely temporary and part of the natural cycle of life. We can then remove judgment from those experiences and just allow them to be what they are. Of course, I'm not suggesting we don't take wise actions to alleviate suffering or navigate away from undesirable outcomes, because that's exactly what we should do in many situations. I'm just suggesting that we accept our painful or seemingly negative experiences as having a legitimate but temporary place in our lives, and this state of non-judgment allows them to pass without undue resistance. Towards the end of the interview, Vincent shares a vision he was shown of the human future. This is yet another common feature of NDE experiences. Taken as a whole, these NDE visions are often contradictory. Some NDE experiences see war, suffering, and climate catastrophe, while others see glorious cities of light with humans living in harmony with nature. The future that Vincent is shown contains both, and we as individuals have a vital choice to make.
No matter what the news wants to tell you, no matter what Chicken Little is saying about the sky falling, I want you to know our future is absolutely freaking amazing. Now, not society and humanity in general, but society and humanity that choose the light. They choose to not exist in a cage of fear. Because if you allow fear to cage you, it will. And so, somehow we get out of all these cages of fear and we start building communities all over the world in very special locations. And these special locations build cities of light. And that's our future. I feel that it will be my lifetime that we'll see those cities.
And this is why I'm very careful about what media and social media I consume and what people and groups I spend most of my time around. I just have no appetite to scroll the daily doomer news cycle. The key for me, acknowledge the darkness, but focus upon the light.
But the scary part is for most of the world is in the process of getting ready for those cities of light, there's going to be a very big separation between fear and love. And most of the earth is going to choose the fear path. And they will jump into those cages of fear for safety, for knowing that they're not going to die.
So it can be seen that we have a choice to make. We have to remember that just because most people are choosing something that is unwise and that insanity is normal, doesn't mean that we have to live that way and think that way also. And that's all I'm going to share of Alan L. Chapman's interview with Vincent Tolman. As I said, relevant links are in the description if you want to find out more about them, as well as some links to my own materials. And please do like this video and subscribe. Comments are also very welcome, as all this helps elevate the video in YouTube's rankings and will help me to keep this channel thriving. I might add that it's not easy to talk about these kinds of things, especially for people involved in academia, like me, or any kind of formal research, where there's pressure to conform to the status quo position that consciousness is merely an emergent property of the brain and its neural machinations. In this worldview, humans are little more than biological machines. A lot of people hold that position, and it has to be said that many other people's worldviews may also contradict my own, in that they may hold a differing religious or personal spiritual conviction. But none of this should stop us from talking about the fundamental questions of life and cosmos. I'm a futurist, a big picture futurist, and inevitably future human civilizations will look radically different from our current expression. So I believe that it's foolish to simply dismiss visions of the future simply because they seem strange to us. Just think of what we might become if our understanding of mind and cosmos acknowledges the reality that consciousness is fundamental in nature, not an accidental byproduct of it. I believe that it's vitally important that we begin to understand integrated intelligence as a natural aspect of human consciousness and of consciousness in general. Because when we do come to understand that, I believe that we will be ready to transcend our current delimited expression of civilization. We'll then be equipped to move on to the next stage of human and planetary evolution. Conversely, and by implication, the longer we delay that shift, that awareness, the more we shall retard our own species' evolution and our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. and delay our understanding of the purpose of existence and of the universe itself. As Vincent Tolman says, in the short run, many people, perhaps most, will choose fear, and I would add a blind adherence to mechanistic science or fundamentalist religion, over a commitment to the exploration of a transcendent future. But the good news is that we're all personally free to choose our preferred path, at least in as much as our conscious awareness and life circumstances permit. I'm Mike Anthony. See you again soon in the futures.